What exactly is Sati? Millions of women died. What led them to do so? What was the reason behind burning millions of women to the ground? What actually was Sati? Sati was a historical practice in Hinduism where a widow would burn herself on her husband's funeral pyre. At least she was expected to do so. It is usually derived from the name of the goddess Sati and who burned herself in response to showing disrespect to her husband. It is an act of devotion, loyalty towards your husband. And if you did not do this, you would be abolished from the Hindu community. So, what led to Sati? Sati was meant that as soon as your husband died, you, as a woman, the wife, no matter your age, your background, your social status, were expected to burn yourself alive. That was what Sati meant, burning yourself to the ground for something which you are not responsible for. You were considered to be a good wife if you did it. If you were a bad wife and you did not do it, you led a life of misery as a widow. This was the Hindu culture then. This was the practice that was done throughout India, at least in Bengal, Rajasthan, and the northern parts. It was a cruel practice, often compared to the witch burning practice in England, but I think this is far worse than that. Because those days, women were very young when they were married off to much, much older men. So most men died due to old age, any reason, but it was blamed on the women for simply existing and getting married. A woman's no meant nothing then. If you were a woman, you were forced to obey. You were expected to obey. And that was the truth then. This was something you were expected to do. The term originally meant a good wife. If you were not a good wife, you would lead a life of misery as a widow. This would mean you would live in ashrams with minimum food and water, and forced and reminded every day that you are the reason your husband died. You are a bad wife. You do not live. You do not deserve to live. And you have no part in this community, the Hindu community, that is. Now, what is the origin of Sati? It originated, even though it's a subject of debate, it is considered to have originated from the warrior aristocracy. Have any of you watched the movie Padmavati? Then you would know that burning yourself, a woman burning herself, was actually more of a practice to tell the enemies that telling the enemies that you cannot touch a woman because she is not for you. And it was not about and it was about respecting a woman. It was about protecting a woman's pride. Women would burn themselves so that they are not subjected to harassment and sexual torture by the enemies. However, the meaning of sati completely changed. It became something else. It became associated with this divine goddess of this virtue, this great wife, this good wife image. And the first woman to undergo sati was actually drugged so that she couldn't run away, even though she tried. That was how intense this performance was, this act, that even if you defied the system would find a way to pull you in. This practice was popularized in the 10th century, initially as warrior aristocracy, later as the groups extended from 12th as like it extended to other groups from 12th to 18th century. It was also witnessed in many other parts of Southeast Asia outside the Indian continent, in places like Indonesia and Vietnam. Sati, however, was never extensively observed all over India, mainly in Rajasthan, Bengal, and select northern parts, and it also does not have any scriptural sanctions. Approximately 10,000 to 15,000 women over 2,500 years were killed only in Rajasthan, Bengal, and select northern regions. The big question mark here is why were they killed? The only reason being that it had something to do with the goddess, just some very vague thing, isn't it? Don't you think that out of all the practices that were performed by the Hindu gods, this was something very vague to take up? Well, the actual reason, I think, why it was taken up was because it targeted women. It was not a coincidence. After the death, the property usually went to the wife. The money, the any sort of materialistic belonging went to the wife. However, if they could remove the wife from the picture, the money and the property and everything would go to other family members who were greedy and wanted it. Don't you think this is a good reason for them to kill the wife, to blame it on religion because everyone was quite religious then, to just say that, you know, it was something religious because this was a complete misinterpretation of the Vedas. This does not have any scriptural sanction. Then why would they perform it if this does not have scriptural sanction? It was not a misinterpretation, at least in my opinion. It was done on purpose, just to get the property, just to remove the wife from the picture. And what did this lead to? This led to millions, thousands of wives, thousands of mothers, daughters, sisters getting murdered just because of some people's grief, or being forced to live a life of misery, of uh, poverty, even though it was not their fault at all. So, Sati did stop, but it was not stopped by Indians only. Raja Ram Mohan Roy did contribute a lot, and my respects to him are enormous. But if it was not for the British colonial authorities who made it illegal, then maybe sati would have still been practiced till today. And it was made illegal, even though it was made illegal in 1830s. It was still practiced in secrets till the 80s, the 1980s, till the Indian government finally decided to step in and completely made this illegal in 1987. Even though, in my opinion, that should have been done way earlier, at least when we had gotten our independence. So that was the practice of sati, the sati pratha, as we call it, the sati culture. So, what do you think about it? Do you think it was at all fair? I don't think so. In fact, that's not even a question. It was completely unfair. Do you think? What do you think was the real reason behind sati? In my opinion, it was the greed of the other family members. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. And if you like these type of deep dive videos, then let me know. I'll make more of these. Thank you for watching.